Hello, everybody, and welcome to the deck. I am Bart Robley, and I am here with what I consider, well, today, four of the greatest human beings ever born. We got Rick
Wow.
Stojak down in San Diego,
Hey.
Chip Ritter in Tucson, Arizona, the man himself, Jeremy Steinkohler up in the Bay Area, and in Texas, Bobby, and I got to say this right, please, God. Bobby Jarzombek. Bobby is an amazing drummer. Bobby, welcome to the show. Now I'm gonna go ahead and throw this one out there, but I've got to say this is so cool, and I was so excited when I saw this. Bobby's played with some of the biggest metal bands. I mean, he played with Rob Halford. He played with Sebastian Bach from Skid Row. He was in Fate's Warning, played in Fate's Warning, and then he goes from that to George Strait. And I got to jump in with this one. This one because I found myself in this situation. Chip said that he's found himself in this situation. I played metal for years. That's what I did. If it didn't have double bass, I didn't want to play it. Huge Tommy Aldridge fan. So anyway, Bobby, how do you go from that to George Strait, like Rob Halford to George Strait? Because I wasn't in Rob Halford or play with George Strait, but I've gone from metal to country. How did you make that leap? How did that come about? I am so curious about that.
Yeah, I think everybody sort of who doesn't know my history is sort of kind of blown away by that news, especially, just on basic, on websites. I did go to a couple of forums and everybody's kind of like freaked out by it. And it's strange. People who know me really well and know my personal sort of life and what I do day to day and week to week and friends like that know that I've been playing country music since I was 17 years old.
Cool.
I actually, when I was a senior in high school, there was a fiddle player, Nancy Breedenberg. She had a band called Nancy Fly and the Family Fortune, and she asked me to play in her country band. And I started doing that, and I started playing country. I grew up with, the hard rock sort of stuff and of the 70s and all that kind of stuff, and I love that. And then bands like, Kiss and Rush and Aerosmith and Ted Nugent, whatever, like all that stuff. But then this country thing came around when I was a senior, and I started playing it. I started just learning the songs, and I did it for a few years. And when I got out of high school, I didn't know really what I wanted to do. I didn't go to college, for anything, and so I just started playing around town locally, trying to make some money. And San Antonio, of course, country music is huge, and Texas in general. And you can make, you can make a little bit of money playing on the weekends. And at that time, I was teaching a little bit, just trying to feel my way around or whatever. But as I started playing country music around San Antonio, I started to really get to love it. It was a few years, probably a few years in, and I started to really get it. I started to really understand the music, what it was about, and the lyrics and the drummers. And I was listening to a lot of Larry London and Eddie Bayers and all the guys that were country music players. And I started to understand the greatness of the drumming also, and as well as the songs. And so as years progressed, and I did, as I moved up, I guess, into bands like from Juggernaut to Riot to then Halford in 2000, and then Sebastian Fate's Warning, all that sort of stuff. My country local sort of things kind of took that same sort of plateaus, and I got to the point where I got better and better at it and playing with better players around town. And then and there was, and everybody in George's band, George Strait's band, is pretty much based in the San Antonio, Austin, New Braunfels, San Marcos area. And I had met some of those guys over the years and got to play and started playing with those guys in various configurations. And in 2013, Ronnie Huckabee, who is George's piano player, and musical director, me and him started playing together in a band where we would have sort of, a weekly Thursday night gig, but we'd have weekend gigs or whatever. And that went on for about a year. And I think we developed sort of a really good relationship, me and him, of the artist we played for was a guy, Freddie Cruz, and he would want to learn country songs every week, classic country songs, Merle Haggard, George Strait, of course, Alan Jackson, George Jones, whatever it was. And that's what we did. And I think me and Huck got a pretty good relationship of working, and he understood, I did my homework. I, learned the stuff properly, the charts, the number charts, whatever he handed out, we got just a good vibe. And so we did that for a while. And then that a few years later went into the George Strait's band, the Ace in the Hole band. They also have a side band called the Texas Jam Band, which involves 4 members of George's band. So there's 4 guys from George Strait's band. There's Huck, Benny MacArthur, Rick McRae, and Mike Daly. And those 4 guys are the nucleus of that band. And so they asked me to join that band when Mike Kennedy, George's drummer, was playing with that band. And Mike Kennedy sadly died in a tragic automobile accident in 2018. And he had been George's drummer for 27 years. And so they asked me to join the Texas Jam Band. So I joined the Texas Jam Band and had been playing with them for a couple of years. So over the last year or so, 2 years, when Mike died from George's band and the Texas Jam Band, George went out and did shows, and he hired Lonnie Wilson, the studio grade drummer out of Nashville. And Lonnie played the George Strait shows, and I was doing the Texas Jam Band stuff. And for whatever reason, after this whole COVID thing, the guys, George hadn't played a show in like 14 months. And I guess they just wanted to make a change or something. And I'm not really sure how that all went down. But George, I guess, was talking with Huck and said, hey, want to make a change, drummer change or whatever. And either Huck recommended me or George inquired, hey, who's the jam band drummer? Not exactly sure how that went down. But at that point, I got the call from George and to do a private show, which was a couple of weeks ago, which we did in Austin, Texas. And so I did 3 rehearsals with George and the band, and then I did the show. And the rehearsals were great, and the show that we did was awesome in Austin. And George texted me and said, see you in August. And that's the first show. That's Vegas. And the vibe throughout the rehearsals, though, I think it was kind of like, I think they knew and whatever, and I think that it kind of all went down as things are supposed to go down when you play with a new band or whatever, and learning the songs. And I did a lot of homework learning the tunes. I did a lot of watching Mike Kennedy and what he did live with the band for those 29 years, watching stuff on YouTube, and I had board tapes and just learned everything the best way I could, as far as just the whole vibe, the tempos, the way Mike has such a unique style. Also plays open-handed. He's actually really playing on a right kit. He has a really unique style, and so I kind of studied a lot of that and kind of threw some of that in here and there, and I think it really worked for those guys. And so that's about it, I guess.
Bobby,
go ahead, Rick.
Were you able to leave your second kick behind then?
So I, playing country music as I have for 40 years, since I was 17 years old. Back then, there was no such thing as a double pedal, or they were very, very primitive. And I got used to always having two kicks, but I got my first double pedal maybe in 90 something, early 90s. I still remember who I was playing with. And I brought it to the country gigs, and I always have, and I still today use the double pedal. I use it just for the endings of the tunes or whatever, if I'm doing some kind of flurry around the kid or something, or like if you do a typical bucket of fish or something like that on the drum, across the toms, instead of that, I'll go that, with the two hits, and just little stuff like that. I don't, I don't go crazy with it, but I bring my double pedal out to everything that I.
Oh, that's cool. You do that.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you were playing open-handed when you got that gig. Was that something? Did you learn to play open-handed from the get-go?
No, I mean, I'm predominantly right-handed, but I do a few things left-handed. Ever since I was a kid, I bounce a basketball left-handed. I'll throw a frisbee left-handed, and if I'm chopping wood, it's left-handed. So I do a few things left-handed, but it really sort of came about in right around 1990 when I was working with Riot, and Riot was doing this really progressive record called "The Privilege of Power," and there was one song in particular that was called "Storming the Gates," and I had one pattern that I wanted to do this thing around the toms while keeping time, and I couldn't do it this way, so I put the left hand on the hi-hat and I played the pattern. That verse is in the verse, actually, and I played that particular pattern, and I had thought about it at that moment, and I said, I was the hugest Simon Phillips fan growing up. So I watched him, or whatever, doing it, and I said, man, I really want to do this. I really want to learn to play open-handed. And at that point, I was doing the Riot gig, and I was playing a lot of, weekend stuff, cover stuff, country music around town. And I said, I'm going to learn. At that point, I wanted to learn the Riot set, how to play the Riot set that we were playing live open-handed. So I still had a ride on the right side, but I had my left-handed, and I would play. It was weird because I'd play open-handed on the hi-hat, but I would play ride playing, with the right. So I learned the set that way. And then I just started on my local kind of gigs. I started playing the really basic stuff, ZZ Top, Creedence, Doobie Brothers, whatever it was. And those sort of songs I learned to play open-handed, and I played. And there was for a little while where I was taking a ride to the gigs, where I would, if I played right-handed, I played left-handed, but if I couldn't do something in particular and I'd chicken out on it or something, then I could actually move over to the right and play that particular pattern. And then same way this way, if I felt like I would switch over and play the hi-hat with my right hand. So it sort of evolved. But then every day in my practice room, if I was working on a particular idea, I totally abandoned the crossing the traditional sort of deal. I just practiced every new thing I learned. We were talking about right before we went live. We were talking about the cookbook, Mel Bay's cookbook, and that was a book as well as a lot. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
And, as well as a lot of other books that were sort of stick control, whatever patterns I was kind of incorporating into a sort of exercise or a concept I was working on. I would play them open-handed, and I just kept doing it. And then gradually I was able to do more stuff and sort of change, completely to the open-handed thing, but it took years and years. I mean, so many years. So it's, it's
I
a process.
always tell my students that when they see a drummer playing open-handed, that's a drummer that's put in a lot of time.
Yeah, that's right.
So do you, did I hear you correct? Do you use 2 ride cymbals now, or do you just have a ride cymbal on your right side? Or do you have 2 ride cymbals?
I just have the one on my left, and
okay.
Yeah, and so, but I did that just for a short while, where I did the 2 ride cymbals on the gigs, and that was probably only for like a couple of years or so. But there's a couple of things that I do that I still occasionally do if I'm playing like a train beat, which everybody knows it's a typical, train beat. But I do a thing where if I'm playing 8th notes on the ride or whatever, if I'm playing the train beat, and then depending on the tempo, if the tempo is really quick, I play 8 notes on the ride. I'll go to the ride cymbal, and then I'll fill in the notes on the snare, like so I'm playing the 8th notes. Okay. And that pattern, if I do that and I'm playing, depending on the tempo, I'll actually come over and play right hand on the ride and then fill in those notes on the snare drum. And I still do that one particular pattern. Depending on the tempo, I'll do that like crossed over. And I don't know exactly why. It just feels a little better at certain tempos to me. So,
hey, Bobby, what about your kicks then? Are you leading right or are you leading left on your kicks?
Good question.
No, right.
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah, I studied on double bass. I studied Joe Franco's book.
Yeah, double bass drumming. Yeah.
That's kind of like I used to play all those patterns in that book, and I sort of adopted that. All the numbers, the 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the ands. There it is. All the ands on the right, and then all the e's and uhs on the left. And that method, that sort of principle of double bass is sort of that's what I've always followed. Of course, when you get into 30-second notes and all that, it gets a little weird, and then it changes. But that's the sort of principle of double bass that I've always used. And Jeff Bowders, who teaches at MI and or PIT and is a great player, plays with Paul Gilbert. He has a book called what's his book called? The Double Bass Book. But that it kind of does it's kind of a little bit of a different approach, but that's a great book. I would recommend.
Is that more alternating approach, or?
Yeah, it is completely alternating at all times.
Hey, wow.
And I've tried to do that over the years, and I had kind of studied that. There's advantages, I think, to both approaches. Without sitting behind a kit, I could show. I can't explain it, but there are advantages to the Jeff Bowders approach and the Joe Franco sort of approach. So I think both books are great, though.
Yeah, right on. It's good to be diverse and have it all together, and then just apply it as we need it.
Yeah, I think if you're going to learn double bass, buy both of those books and then use one and then go to the other and then go back and forth. I think that's the way to do it, actually.
Yeah.
Bobby, I was wondering when you were a younger child and you were just getting interested in drumming, who were your major influences in the instrument? Who influenced you to start playing drums, or maybe caught your attention as you began learning drums?
Well, it was weird because I think initially it was just me and my brothers were interested in like pop, rock radio, and we were interested more in songs and listening and, and that sort of thing. So we weren't so much interested in playing an instrument, I think. But then it came Christmas time, and my mom and dad bought us a little cheap $14 drum kit from Sears, and a little toy keyboard, organ or whatever. And my younger brother, Ron, was playing little keyboard songs, the night of, Christmas night, already picking it up. And I didn't show too much interest in the drums, and neither did my older brother. And so my brother Ron started taking piano lessons, and then my mom was kind of like, well, you want to take some drum lessons, or whatever? And I was like, yeah, I guess. I don't know. And so, but I did started taking just snare drum lessons. And then it turned into, well, I kind of like this or whatever. And so I then got a drum. She got me a little bit better drum kit. It was just a snare, a tom, kick, and a cymbal. It was a Olympia. I think the brand was Olympia or something. There's like a gold sparkle kind of thing. And so I didn't even have a hi-hat. I mean, I couldn't even imagine what I was playing. It was probably but that's what and so listening to rock radio, I mean, we started buying, like records and stuff, and the early influences, I guess, were like Floyd Sneed of Three Dog Night, Pete Rivera of Rare Earth, just kind of like early sort of that, 70s sort of rock drummers. And then that sort of evolved into listening to bands that were a little bit heavier, if it was Kiss or Aerosmith, as I mentioned, and that sort of thing. But the first big influence, of course, was Neil Peart when hearing Rush for the first time and all that. So that was sort of the early was the pop sort of rock guys, and then evolving to guys that were really known, I guess, more for their drumming and what they created within the song, like Neil Peart, and then Simon Phillips, Terry Bozzio, all those guys sort of came into my playing, and I started to kind of study it more rather than just playing along with the records, started to kind of study what the guys were doing and that sort of thing.
Right on. I saw a video on YouTube. It's when you were performing with Sebastian Bach, you're playing Monkey Business and Tom Sawyer. So that was incredible. I was watching that, and you're doing these wicked behind your back cymbal chokes and crashes behind your back. When did the cymbals behind your back come about for you, and how did that happen?
Yeah, it's sort of a weird story. It's sort of a weird story. When I guess it was somewhere around 1990 when I was playing with Riot at the time, and a friend of mine, Billy White, had the gig playing with Dokken, and that wasn't when it was when Don Dokken split from the band Dokken, and he was auditioning drummers. And my friend Billy was playing guitar, and I was talking on the phone with Billy, and he was telling me about a drummer that auditioned for Dokken, and they were having it's cattle call kind of thing. So the drum kit was set up, and guys would move stuff, a little bit. And he told me this guy had a cymbal that he had, like it was kind of like either the guy didn't have, and I don't know who the drummer is or was, but the guy didn't have enough time to set up his cymbals or for whatever reason, and he would play a fill, and when he would go, the cymbal was like way behind him. And I said, really? I said he had a cymbal behind him, and I'm asking my friend Billy, and he said, well, it wasn't really like he had a cymbal behind him, but it kind of looked that way. And I thought about that, and I said, man, that's pretty crazy. So I went into my practice room, and I put a cymbal behind me right here. And I played a fill and hit it, and I thought, well, that's pretty easy. And so I kept sort of doing it, and I thought, well, that's cool. So then I said, well, I'll put one over here. And so I had two cymbals that were right behind me. And this one, because I was already sort of playing open-handed, in my if you know, if you play open-handed, for some reason your left hand sort of sits a little higher than your right does, because your right's coming down and hitting a rim shot or whatever, and your left is kind of on the hi-hat or the ride. And so the left, I placed it a little bit higher, and I placed it up here, and I thought, well, that's cool, you know, and I had this one a little higher and this one a little lower. So then I started kind of playing fills and then crossover and that sort of thing. And then I started getting into, you know, doing cymbal chokes and that sort of stuff. And back then everybody was learning the stick twirling. And then I got into, well, I can do that and then twirl and then hit this one upwards, that one backwards. And,
Nice.
and I just kind of got into the whole sort of just trying to explore and create as many sort of combinations and chaos of, you know, cymbals and drumming that I could. And I kind of got into doing that. And so it evolved just from, you know, that conversation I had with my friend to actually doing it and you know, sort of, it's a weird thing too. Like, I don't do it with all the bands I play with. Like, I did it with Halford and with Sebastian. Fate's Warning is a different sort of gig, you know, where everything's a little more, you know, wrists and fingers and splash cymbals, where my cymbal setup sort of changes for certain bands. And it's not a power metal thing, where Sebastian and Halford and Riot were kind of a little more power metal, and it made more sense to have, you know, where you're doing big hits with multiple crashes, and that's where the back sort of cymbals, and I'm using 6 crashes on those gigs and 2 Chinas or whatever, but it kind of lends itself more to that. And so, but people will ask me, like, if I'm on a gig with Fate's Warning or something, they'll say, dude, where's the crashes behind you? And I'm like, dude, that's a different thing. I don't do that for this gig, you know?
Yeah.
People ask me on the George Strait gig, dude, where's the cymbals behind you? You know? It ain't happening, buddy. You know? So.
Well,
Hey,
I got a question in regards to maybe not even really a drumming question, more of a touring question, because you've mentioned 3 people: Rob Halford, Sebastian Bach, and George Strait. And, you know, being on the road, you know, the hardest thing about being on the road a lot of times is personalities. I can't imagine those 3 personalities in and of themselves have to be completely polar opposites. How do you find yourself dealing with that? Just like the you know, as a sideman, you know, I don't know if you're considering yourself a sideman or members of those bands. How do you find yourself dealing with those types of things logistically, or just getting along with people on the road and stuff? How's that work in those situations?
That's an interesting question. I mean, it is something that's very important. I think that, you know, as I mentioned, playing country music since I was 17 years old, but also playing the metal thing, you know, I grew up, I think, and then growing up and playing in so many bands, and, you know, through the years in different genres, I think your personality sort of develops within those circles of people, whether they're people that are very, if you want to call it, very city-like people, or very country-like people, or whatever it might be. But I think as your drumming sort of develops over the years, I think your personality sort of develops, and your relationships with those people. And for instance, you know, just being in Texas and sort of growing up with, you know, like whether it's you know, the farming sort of attitude and being into, you know, like growing things, you know, plants and trees and shrubs and, you know, vegetables and that sort of thing. You have a relatable, especially in Texas. I've always had that relatable sort of topics and things that I with the country sort of vibe and that whole thing, as well as being in the metal circuit, whether it might be, you know, just the bands and the drummers and the attitudes, this sort of metal attitude, whatever that might be. I can't even really think what a metal attitude would be, but it's just like it's sort of developing all that and within your personality, and then also with your relationships and your drumming throughout so many years. And then after doing both and for 40 years, you're just like, I'm at a point now, being 57 years old, I don't feel alien in any of those atmospheres. I really don't, because I think it's just all the years of having both. You know, I have so many friends that are in the country music scene and then I have so many friends in the metal sort of scene, whether it's drummers or whether it's, you know, guitar players or whatever it might be. So I just think you know, relationships and personalities develop the same way that your drumming develops, you know, with how many bands you've played with over the years and how many different songs you've learned and different styles and whatever it might be, and working relationship with people. I mean, I've played with, you know, like I said, so many different people over the years, and it's strange to me, you know, to play with only one band or whatever growing up. But there are a lot of people who do that, you know, and have gone really successful and great players. So I think everybody has a little bit of a different path, you know, whatever it might be. It's, you know, all you guys and everybody else, you know, that you play with, everybody has a different path and a unique path.
Yeah.
Hey, Bobby, your closet must be hysterical, man. You probably have it all packed. You probably have all your metal clothes and then your country clothes, your skinny clothes, you know. Yeah, here's some black leather.
You got to make sure you don't wear the wrong outfit for the wrong gig.
He's got studs on this side, and he's got
your liquor cabinet must be like JD over here, and then some fine red wines and cognac.
No. I'm a whiskey dude, so yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's strange. You know, like even when I started playing like local gigs or whatever, I didn't know what to wear. Well, obviously, if I'm playing a country gig and I'm playing around town, I'm wearing, you know, the jeans or, you know, a shirt, a button-down shirt or that sort of thing. But in most of my gigs that I play, that I'm playing metal or whatever, I wear black shorts and this actual shirt, you know, sleeveless sort of kind of thing.
Cool.
That's what I always kind of wore that. But, you know, with George and the guys, the band wears, I actually, when I started playing with the Texas Jam Band, the guys dress up and wear nice jeans, and then we'll wear a button-down shirt and even a jacket. Wow. And so it's pretty cool. I mean, it's actually, I had to, when I started playing with those guys, I actually put on the jacket and played through the set to make sure I was comfortable playing with a jacket on. It's
yeah. Do you play in cowboy boots?
No, I play barefoot, you know.
Really? Oh, you do?
I play barefoot.
Right on.
So
better pedal control.
You know, when I was a kid and growing up in Texas, I sort of running around the house, I think, and running outside playing football, some sports or something, and then running back in the house. I just like I guess summertime, that sort of thing. Yeah. And so when I would sit behind the kit and was barefoot, it just felt normal. And then when I started going out and playing gigs and having shoes on, it just felt very strange. So I have pictures of me when I'm like probably 12 or 13 years old, and I got socks on and I'm playing like, you know, like a talent show or something. I've got socks on. But then when I started playing gigs when I was like 15, 16 years old, it just didn't feel right. So I'd take my shoes off and I would start to play, you know, and I played barefoot, and it just felt natural. It felt normal. Yeah. So the one good thing about that is I never have to have this. A lot of people are like, a lot of drummers may be like, God, man, these shoes don't feel like my other shoes. Maybe I should, take my other shoes out and put those on or whatever. For me, it was always kind of a thing where I never had to worry about that. It was always felt the same, like being barefoot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hell when it's cold. I'll have shoes on if I'm practicing and it's cold or whatever in the room. I'll have my shoes on for about 10 minutes. Then I'll take the shoes off. And then I'll put, just socks. And then by the time I'm warmed up, then I'm okay, But
I have a couple of drum students that play barefoot. And they same thing. It's like, well, when I'm at my house playing, I don't have shoes on. It makes sense,
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
Yeah.
Bobby,
I do everything. I do everything barefoot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bobby, you're with Peisty cymbals, DW drums, Evans drum heads, Vic Firth sticks, and Kelly Shoe microphones. Can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Peisty and how that came about?
Yeah, the weird thing is I sort of had endorsements when I was with Riot back in the late 80s, but I didn't really have kind of official endorsements or whatever it was. When I got got the Halford gig in 2000, that's when Halford's. I'm gonna leave I'm gonna take this with me for 1 second, if you guys don't mind.
Not at all.
Is this cool?
Yeah.
That's very cool. All right.
Can you take it to the Alamo so we could see
I'm
the Alamo?
sensing some drums in our future.
Yeah.
I want to see the studs and the spikes.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So So when I got the Halford gig, so I basically Halford's manager said, what endorsements do you have? And at that time I really didn't have any. And so he was like, well, what would you like to play? And I said, well, I've always liked Peisty cymbals. And I started naming some of the companies that I was really into. And so he helped me, and we made some phone calls just to the reps. And it's sort of it was basically that. It wasn't like, they helped me get the endorsements, the initial endorsements. And I am proud to say that that was 2000. So I've been with Peisty since then, 20 years. And then Vic Firth, same thing. Vic Firth sticks and Evans drum heads. And that was right at that time. The drum company, I have changed since my initial endorsement. I have changed. I joined DW in 2008, 2007, 2008.
I remember talking to you about that when you went to the factory. We were at the NAMM show, and you were telling me about that. That's cool. Yeah,
yeah. And so I've been with them since then. And yeah, love all those. And also Kelly Shoe with Jeffrey Kelly, who makes the Kelly Shoe, and that's another one of my endorsements. So just companies, that and like as I said, I think it's important to stay with the companies that you're with and develop those sort of relationships. And although those relationships also change because different people coming in and out of those companies also, but so works for me,
Tell us a little. We were talking earlier before the show started about the Kelly Shoe. Tell us why the Kelly Shoe. What is it about the Kelly Shoe that you like? What's the deal with that?
I like it because I guess at the time I didn't know of everybody places a microphone in their kick drum, whether it's a 91 or 52 for the inside mic, or the outside mic, or however they mount it. And for a long time I was using a 91. The thing about the Kelly Shoe is there's basically two sort of mounting systems. He has what's the shoe, the actual shoe, which you can put the 52 or a D112 in that sort of configuration, and And the way the Kelly shoe works is you have these sort of rubber band sort of things that come around and mount into the inside of the kick drum, and they hold the microphone, suspending the microphone in the kick drum, and so that's the one configuration. One of you guys, who had the shoe there?
I do. I'm taking the drum off the stand.
Mark's
right
got
now.
a Kelly shoe microphone. That's
Yeah, I'm endorsed by them too, and there's my floor tom, the 14-inch there.
That's
got
beautiful.
the Kelly shoe inside. Thank you. And I'm also an Audix guy, so it's got a, what is it, a D? It's a D2 in there. Oh yeah.
nice.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
And that's the shoe. Even though they're kind of all sort of, I guess, called shoes, but the other one is the flat or flats.
Yeah.
And FALTZ, I think, and that's it's sort of just it sits. It's like a tray basically, and you can put your 91 on there, your Beta 91, and so that on that one you have the rubber band sort of thing, and so the Kelly shoe sits this way, and I mean, the great thing about it is you can take your kick drum to a gig and it's sitting in there and you never have to worry about the thing moving. If your kick drum has gone through some sort of, road cases and that sort of thing, if it's sitting this way or whatever, when you set the kick drum down, that shoe is just kind of suspending the flat, I guess, that 91 in there. And it's a really cool system. I mean, it's so simple in a way, but it's a lot better than having your microphone sit on a pillow, because that's always going to move. It's going to turn sideways. It's going to turn this way or that way. And so having it suspended like that is really nice. And I mean, as you know, I mean, even with stuff like rims mounts and all that sort of thing, when that stuff came out, I can tell the difference. I remember even in my own studio, having a microphone set up and having it sit on the drum versus having it sort of isolated on a microphone stand. You can hear how the drum resonates so much better having the microphone not attached to the actual shell of the drum or the hoop of the drum or whatever it might be. And I think that's the cool thing about the Kelly shoe.
Right on, man.
Yeah, I love having my drums, my toms, and my kick drum, everything internally mic'd. I like the sound of that. I like to hear the drum. I mean, I like to hear the head too, but I like to hear the drum resonate. Do you have your toms mic'd up with the Kelly shoes as well, or just your kicks?
No, I don't. That's an interesting thing. Maybe I'll do that.
I like you just on mine right here. There's an XLR right there on the side.
Oh, right.
Wow.
The sound. You know what? I've had them mic'd up internally for years, and I've had one sound guy like, "Oh, I don't like that," But everybody swears by it, and it makes life easier on them. Like, you got a casino gig or something. They just walk up. They don't have to get out their mics. They plug in your kit. There's no bleed from guitar. Somewhat isolated. You're going to get bleed, but it's not a lot of guitar amps blaring in there and stuff like that. Makes our job a little bit easier. So yeah, they're cool.
I think Simon Phillips was the first one that I saw that had done that. Maybe. Yeah. Where he did that.
Yeah. He had that. Was it the May miking system or something like that? I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Bobby, I meant to ask you about something you mentioned earlier. You referenced the Riot album, "The Privilege of Power." And that was an album you guys got to record with the Tower of Power horns. Is that right?
Yeah, that was a sort of very experimental record. That was done later. They added the horns. And actually, we had no idea that was actually going to happen. It was kind of one of those producer sort of things, afterthought sort of things that happened. Riot was based out of New York, basically, sort of San Antonio and New York. And so when we went out there to New York and Green Street Studios and recorded that. But that was sort of an after kind of thought. So I never actually got to hang out with those the guys from Power and that sort of stuff.
What about
David Garibaldi fan, of course. His book, Future Sounds, that was another one of my books that that I was big time.
I work at that one all the time too. What about didn't you get to tour? Was it with Sebastian Bach that you guys were opening for Guns N' Roses for a while?
Yeah, we did that in sort of mostly as 2006, 2007. We did a bunch of stuff with them. We did and we did a few tours. We did US and Canada, and then we did South America, all South America area. So yeah, we did that at different points with those guys.
Did you get to know them and hang out with them?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And Frank was the drummer. When we first started doing dates, Brain was the drummer, and for a short while, and then Frank Ferreira was the drummer after that. But yeah, got to hang out. I mean, it's always cool, when doing the bigger shows with when I was with Sebastian. We did the opening up for Guns N' Roses. When I was with Halford, we opened for Iron Maiden. For a while, we did those tours, and in Europe also. And then later, when I was with Halford, we did Ozfest, and that was Halford, Motley Crue, and Ozzy on that particular Ozfest in 2000. Yeah, and so it was always cool. I mean, it's great playing big, the big venues and opening up and being part of a big entourage, whatever it might be.
Do you remember the very first arena show that you played, and were you nervous to go on stage in front of that big crowd?
I don't know if I do remember the first arena. When I was, I guess, in the, the big, I guess the biggest, the first early show that was a sort of an arena was when Riot went to Japan for the first time in 1989, I want to say. That was the first big sort of arena thing, and going to Japan for the first time, and getting off the bus, going to the hotel, and seeing 200 kids outside screaming, and wondering like, what are they here for? And I had no idea there to meet up.
Love it.
Like getting off. It's just like, I think we flew into like Osaka or something, and then the first show, flew into Tokyo, but the first show was in Osaka, and then arriving there, and that was such one of the strangest things that I'll never forget. And then playing the large venues. I don't think they were arenas then, but they definitely thousands and thousands of people. And I think that was the first time where I played the first time I played a big show. But then I guess escalating from that, I guess maybe the next time would have been, playing the European festivals, which I did with Riot too, whether it was Sweden Rock or Wacken or Bang Your Head or Gods of Metal in Italy and some of those festivals. So there was always thousands and thousands of people out in the field, so I did a lot of those, somewhat with Riot, and then later with Halford we did a lot of those, and then South America with Halford doing the soccer stadiums, opening up for Iron Maiden. That was huge. It was like 60,000 people and upwards. And then Rock in Rio was kind of cool because when I did that Halford tour for the album Resurrection, that was in 2000. We started with Iron Maiden in the States, and then we went and we did Japan on our own, and we did some of Europe with with Maiden, and some of it we did on our own. But then we went down South America and did the soccer stadiums. And then the last show of that particular tour in 2000 was Rock in Rio, where it was 250,000 people.
Wow.
And that
Wow.
was, yeah, that's on DVD, Halford, Rock in Rio. That's the biggest show I've done. And I've done that festival twice. I did it with Sebastian years later, and that festival. So yeah, that was a nice way to cap off a tour.
Yeah.
Were you?
Very cool.
Were you in? I know you were with Rob Halford. Were you? You weren't in Fight, were you? Because
No.
yeah. Okay. So you went. How did the Halford gig come to be?
Well,
Just,
Halford was. He had. I mean, Halford's career when he was with Judas Priest was in. He left the band sort of 92, I guess, 90, 92. And then he formed that Fight project, and Scott Travis was the drummer. So
that was Scott Travis. Okay.
He came from Priest and going into Halford. I mean, and going into Fight. And then they did that for a few records, 2 or 3 records. And then Rob kind of went off in a different direction, and he did the project that was called 2. When then Halford came back in, they put the band together, basically. Halford was wanting to do the traditional sort of heavy metal thing, sort of stylistically like Judas Priest. And that's when I came into the band. And in 1999, I came into the Halford band. And when they were sort of putting that together, and the way I got that gig was I got it through recommendation from 2 people. One of those people was a writer named Chris Liebengut, who recommended me for the gig. And he was sort of a consultant to Halford's manager. And he knew me from my whole Riot sort of career, and even Juggernaut before that. So that was done on recommendation. And the other one was when I was with Riot, Roy Z, the producer, saw me play in LA when I was playing with Riot, and really loved my playing, and was trying to always get me to come to LA and record with his band and play with his band. And I never did that at that time. But when they were talking about, drummers or whatever, my name came up, as well as several other guys. And I think it was maybe just a few different guys auditioned for that band. And so I walked in and rehearsed with the band a little bit. And Rob came in while I was rehearsing with the band. And Rob was listening to the songs and was kind of digging it, and walked around. And Rob was kind of like, doing some punches and jabs while he's listening. And so we listened to about 4 or 5 songs, and then he was like, well, boys, let's go to dinner or something. And so we went to dinner, and I was just like, well, what's the deal or whatever? And they said, well, you got the gig. And I was like, okay. So
Nice.
A friend of mine ran sound over at the Grove in Anaheim, and I saw you guys on one of the tours a number of years ago. And I remember watching you play. What's that?
2003 maybe or something.
Yeah. A friend of mine, like I say, he was side stage and front of house over there at the Grove, and they had just installed some new sound system, and you guys were playing. He's like, you got to come in here and hear the sound system. I'm like, okay, cool. And you guys were playing. Man, great show, fantastic band. That was a great band. I remember watching you play. I was like, wow, that's fantastic stuff, man. Good stuff.
It could have been different times. The only reason I say 2003 is because there is a Live in Anaheim DVD that was recorded, Halford, and that was 2003 when that particular show. But we did play there a few times, I believe, at the Grove. Cool venue.
Do you have any kind of like warm up routines or any routine at all that you go through before you go on stage?
I have patterns that I play that I have like a little kind of double pedal thing that I use every once in a while. I also use those. I guess I should have mentioned this when I said endorsements. Though I'm probably going to say this incorrectly, but Hansenfoots, you know what those are?
Yeah, the plastic pedals.
Yeah, the plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
pedals.
What are they?
It's basically they look like, oh, where am I at? They look like this. They're just it's got a plate on the bottom, and then it's got kind of a plate on the top, and it's got a little sort of a sensor kind of thing, and it makes sort of a clicking sound, and then you can put a little sort of a cotton. It's got a cotton sort of or a felt sort of thing, so it doesn't make the clicking sound or whatever. And it's got it's hard to explain. I wish I had them here. They're out in storage, but and I use those for my warm up, and they're just it's a pedal basically with
no drum and no beater. So you just kind of
no drum.
Oh, and that makes sense.
You can mount a beater to it. It's got a little slot for it, and I guess if you were to do something with that, but I use those. Sometimes I'll use a pedals like a double pedal with a pad, and then I'll just have a snare pad on a pad on a snare stand, and I just have I have sort of weird patterns that I like to play. I like to do triples on between the right and the left, and I have sort of accenting patterns. Nothing. I go through patterns in my head that I like. I do this paradiddle thing where I'll accent the paradiddles, but go but play paradiddles within that pattern instead of singles. So it's you can't see it, but anyway,
you can imagine it.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's paradiddle. Yeah, so it's and so I'll have different patterns like that. And then I'll do like 3 on each, and then go into 2, and then I was, when I was on the road, on the last tour I was with, I think it was Sebastian. I mean, this goes a year and a half ago. I told my rep from Evans, Steve Lobemeyer, I said, Steve, send me a couple of these newer pads, the HQ pads. And I said, I want to get those because, wait for a second, guys.
Hey, it looks like Kelly Ray.
Question from Kelly Ray Tubbs. Yeah,
that's a question out of left field. We're going to ask that for a real quick.
What's that?
The Evans pad, right on.
Oh yeah.
And I said, send me a couple of these because I want to do a video and I want to show my practice routine, my warm-up routine. And so he sent me a couple of these, and I still haven't even opened them because I haven't been on the road in a year and a half, know?
Yeah.
You can still do the video for us and send it to us. We'll post it.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Hey, Bobby,
right.
Bobby, we've got Kelly Ray Tubbs has got a question. She says contemporary country music often takes on the characteristics of pop music from 20, 30 years prior. Where do you think today's traditional country music is rooted?
You know
Good
what?
question.
I am not a fan of a lot of the new country music. It's a weird thing. I don't know where it's rooted. I mean, there's so many elements in does she say, what do you think today's traditional country music? I mean, if you listen to country music today, there's a lot of rap and hip hop sort of influence in it. There's a lot of there's a lot of different things that are in current country music. I'm actually sort of shocked. I was telling buddies of mine this a few years ago, even some of the George Strait guys, when we were having conversations a couple of years back. I said, I'm kind of shocked that that country music hasn't had that split of what is country music and what is not country music, because not that there's anything wrong with contemporary country music, but it's not really country music to me. It's not. I mean, the roots, it's almost like if you have rock music and then you have, metal come around and you still call it rock, or you have, rap music come around and you're still calling it rock. It's not rock anymore. It's something else, or grunge, or or new wave, or whatever. I mean, I think that was the right way to go about it. If it's starting to sound different, then call it something else. Don't call it country music. And so I don't know exactly why that hasn't happened in country music, because obviously, San Antonio, Texas, it's a big city. I mean, it's a big country music market, but like we have here in San Antonio, for instance, we have 4 country music radio stations, and 2 of them play sort of the newer country as well as some traditional country artists. But then 2 of the stations play traditional classic country music, and they'll play some newer artists, but those artists are more rooted in real country music. So it's very strange to me that there hasn't been that divide of this should be called country music and this should be called something else. Not that the newer style is bad, it's just not country music. It's not. I mean, the newer.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
The newer artists like Luke Combs, and he's a traditional country artist, even though he's a new artist. And there are some of those, but a lot of them just are not. I don't know why.
Tell you what.
Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite is Hank 3. I don't know if you guys have checked Hank 3 out, but he is just pedal to the metal. I mean, that to me is country music, and it rocks like nobody's business. So
yeah, I gotta listen maybe to more of that. I know he's kind of a diverse artist, and he has some heavy stuff, and then he has some very traditional stuff too.
Yeah, he starts off with his country band, and it's just like there's an intensity to every single song, and the lyrics aren't about pickup trucks and things like that. It's just real root rock and roll lyrics. So he does that first, and then he pulls off his cowboy hat, and he's got big long ponytail, and he does a stripped down band, that's just so totally heavy, like really heavy with a lot of double kick, and he blends the whole thing together, and it's just an experience.
I'll check that out.
Yeah, check it out. Yeah. The album Bobby, Straight to Hell is really cool.
We're getting close on needing to wrap up here. What's on tap for you in the next couple of months as things start to open back up and gigs are happening? What does your calendar look like?
Well, I mean, I have been able to, I guess maybe because Texas sort of opened up a little sooner than maybe some of the other parts of the country. And so I have been playing around town for the last few months, or several months. I think I started, it kind of like it went away for a little while, and then gigs sort of came back starting in like October. So I've been able to kind of still work locally and then do a couple of other things. But I have, I guess the next big thing I have is I'm playing with George Strait in August, doing the Vegas on August 13th and 14th, I think. And George has some shows this year and then well into 2022. So I'm really looking forward to doing those shows and being part of that, and really kind of getting into the groove of things with the guys. And so that at this point is the only thing that's on my books.
Okay, I've got the most important question of the day. Since we're wrapping, and I didn't mean to interrupt, Bobby. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No,
Jeremy and Rick always do this thing when we have somebody on from the East Coast. They're from the East Coast. Now, the band that I play with, the Sam Morrison Band, we do along the lines of it's country, southern rock type of stuff, and so this question is the most important one of the day.
Oh God.
Best Texas barbecue. Where is it?
Ooh.
Because that's what we're about. That's what that band's all about. That's totally what we're about. So yeah. So what's
Bobby
best?
Jarzombek. Where's
What?
the best Texas? Where's the best Texas barbecue?
Yeah, best Texas barbecue.
The best place?
Yeah,
Place?
Yeah, what do you got?
There's a few places I like. There's a local place here, D. Willie's, that's really good. Some really great ribs and brisket. Cooper's Barbecue in New Braunfels is great. Black's in Lockhart, Texas. Man, there's so many great barbecue places here. Barbecue.
Well, we found there's this place outside of Austin called the Salt Lick that was just, dude.
It depends if you're talking about traditional barbecue or new barbecue.
Hold on, I gotta move my practice pad. Oh, not my stairs up. There you go. Sorry, I wasn't ready for that, man.
I did some pretty good ribs yesterday out in the backyard. So,
dude,
nice chicken.
Maybe that was an invite to the deck to
All
come
right.
over here.
Live from Bobby's backyard.
There you go. Right on, Bobby. Well, listen, buddy, it has been a real pleasure talking to you and getting some insight from you. You are just fantastic. Thanks for coming on, man. And Chips, thanks for hooking this up. This is fantastic, Bobby. You're the best, man, and we hope to see you out there on the road again soon.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it, and hopefully. This was somebody learned something, maybe some young drummers or whatever, and got some advice and learned something. I'm sure you guys have interesting topics that y'all talk about, and I'm going to check out the show also for your future interviews and Drummers Education Connection. So I appreciate it, man. It was very cool.
Man. Thanks for coming on.
Very
cool. Hey, Bobby, I got a text from Gene Hoagland. He sends greetings. And he says, effing EFFING, complete God. And then one of the best.
Nice.
All right.
There you go.
Gene Hoagland said one of the best. That's heavy.
Speaking of one of the best, next week we are going to have our very own Chip Ritter on. He's going to be our interviewee.
Hey, we're going to interview Chip.
Very cool.
Awesome. So tune in next week. Thanks everybody for coming out.
Thanks, you.
Bobby.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bobby.